Hi, welcome back to Sail Juice. My guest tonight is a legendary cat sailor from Australia's. It doesn't seem to matter whether you're going around buoys on his Hobie 16 or going around capes, as in Cape Hatteras on an F-18, or going around islands in an archipelago right in Sweden. This guy's fast. So we get a chance to talk with him tonight and find out what makes him go. Firstly, some introductions. My name is Mike Madge. I'm coming in from Thunder Bay, Ontario. And with me tonight is the legendary sailor, Rod Waterhouse. Welcome to the show, Rod.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, well, where are you coming to us from tonight?
Sydney.
Or I guess this morning for you.
Well, I live in Newport, which is Sydney, Australia. So it's a bright summer's morning, sun's shining, and it's around about 30 degrees Celsius. So very nice down here.
Okay, well, if you put a minus sign in front of that, then you're in Thunder Bay here.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So just first, before we get started here, maybe you're a hard guy to catch up with. I mean, it's been a busy year for you. The Worrell 1000, I'm sure, ate up quite a bit of your time. You did an archipelago raid in Sweden. You did the Hobie 16 Worlds over in Spain. I'm sure there was some pit stops along the way on the Sail GP event. Apparently, there's another famous Waterhouse that's lighting it up on that event. So it's been a pretty busy year for you.
Yeah, and funny enough, I just got back from Tonga delivering a big catamaran across the Pacific. So we've had a bit of an adventure on that boat, including a underwater hatch blowing and us basically having to fight for our lives. So this all happened last week. So just another Worrell type adventure. So maybe before we get into all your adventures, where did this lineage of Waterhouses start? Are you the first in your family that started the sailing, or where did it all get started for you? Yeah, pretty much we're the first on our side, but I started when I was about 8 years old. But I married Kerry, and Kerry's family were famous in the local scene. So from little dinghies all the way up. So it's been in on her side, and I've on our side. I guess I'm the first to bring it through.
So what type of boat did you start sailing when you were back that young?
We started in little, I guess almost like an Optimus type boat, but very early into the Hobie scene when I was 14 years old, and rode that wave. And being such a strong one design class, it was just a fantastic boat to learn the trade. So
you just recently won the Worrell 1000. I mean, arguably probably the hardest race in the world, I would think. I mean, right up there with a Volvo Ocean race. You're on a small catamaran, 1,000 miles. Maybe we'll just talk about how it got started. I think I believe the first event was in 1974 when the Worrell brothers had a little bet at the bar about doing it.
Yeah, it was back then. It was in the Hobie 16s, and they raced north to south 1,000 miles, and I think it took something like 12 days.
I think it was 20.
There you go, 20 days. Event. So when I first started, it was 1981, and it was the Holy Grail back then. It was an event that was broadcast around the world, and everyone wanted to do it. And we were fortunate enough to get an Australian team together. That was a non-stop in those days, Hobie 16s, with 3 men rotating the 12 checkpoints, and it took us around about 4.5 days. It was just brutal, tough, fun. And we never looked back after that first year. We just wanted to keep on doing it.
And I mean, this isn't the first time you won it. Looking back, and I think this is number 4 for you, isn't it?
Well, luckily number 5. So and a lot of seconds in there. Yeah. So I think I've done 14 of the events altogether. So I'm a sucker for punishment, and but it's just amazing. Anyone getting the chance to do this race should do it.
Now, so as you mentioned, started up back on Hobie 16s. I believe you were sailing with Brett Dryland at the time. And who else was your other teammate back then when you won in 81?
Well, funny enough, my father-in-law. So I'd just married Kerry, and my father-in-law, he was actually our major sponsor, and we threw the team together. And by that year was just pure attrition. We ended up taking it out against all odds. So it kind of mirrored what happened this last one. We didn't expect to win, but we somehow came away with it.
So I know I listened to another podcast of you talking on one of my favorite podcast shows, Bar Karate. I'll put a plug in for them. And this event almost didn't happen for you. You had a bit of a boat issue.
Yeah, with COVID, et cetera, and worldwide delivery issues, we came over maybe 3 weeks before the event to try to prepare, but our boat was being delivered out of Europe. And in fact, what happened is only the rig for the boat arrived. The hulls did not arrive. So we were up there waiting. And with 2 days to go before the start of the event, we just had to buy a second-hand set of hulls, which was still pretty good. But so that's how we got it together, and then raced down the 1,000 miles down the freeway with a boat behind us to barely make the start. So it was a tough gig with very little preparation.
So, I mean, how unsettling is that? I mean, normally people, when you're getting into a regatta and you're all ready to go for a regatta, like you don't want boat issue to be a problem. So was it something you kind of just rolled with the punches, or were you a little unsettled, or going into the start of the event?
Yeah, it was unsettling because it's one of those things you can't control. You know, when you're sailing on the Worrell, you can control your own destiny, but we had no control of what was happening. So it was unsettling. We were, we just didn't know which way to go. But ultimately, thanks to the local dealer there, Hardy Peters, who's just sensational, and NACRA, we were able to stick it together at the end, and we put together a competitive challenge. So
just going back, I mean, obviously when you did it on the Hobie 16s, the nice part being a one design boat, everybody was equal on boats. How much of a factor is the different design in the boats? I mean, you must have seen quite a few different designs of F-18s there. How did you know that, you were on a competitive boat with putting it together at the end?
Well, actually, we didn't. And that was my biggest fear, was getting onto that start lining and onto the first leg and not being competitive. But that proved not to be the case. And we weren't the quickest, but we were quick. The F-18 rule is so good that it does keep the fleet tight, but within the fleet there were some stunning differences. For instance, the Cirrus F-18, which was a planing boat downwind, was enormously quick, probably 10% quicker than the rest of us off wind. So there's always these differences in the designs, and that's kind of good. A little bit of interest in the design side of the race.
So you're not in any big hurry for it to go back to the Hobie 16?
You know what? It would be a blast if it did. And even though people think it'd be a negative step, I can promise you it'd be a great step. But it's moved on, and people like performance. And the downside is with the performance boats, there's I still say the Hobie 16 is probably the safest boat offshore. The newer designs are a bit flighty, and we had a number of issues. Different boats had different issues. It's because of the lighter craft, a lot more breakages. I think 7 masts broke this year, but that's all part of it. Happy to go with whatever class it is. At the end of the day, it's a lot more than just the boat speed and the boat design. It's one of those races you've got to finish.
Now, I imagine, and especially like you say, with an F-18 being a little more fragile than a Hobie 16, your strategy must be quite a bit different as opposed to going on a typical round the buoy race. Like, you can't just be sheet in and send it the whole way around the course.
No, that's right. You've got to, you're in and out through the surf every day. You're going around, a dozen capes, which are all breakers for as far as the eye can see. So you're taking a boat with dagger boards and swing up rudders across areas they're not designed for. So you've got to manage that, make sure you get out through the surf without breaking and back in, and pick your lines through those capes, because the 16s, we used to just send it up the beach and send her out through the surf, and didn't matter, bulletproof. These boats, they're great in deep water, but in the shallow water, you've got to be very, very careful. So every launch is fraught with danger that you could basically finish a race right there and then.
And I heard on one part of your podcast earlier that, towards the end of the regatta, you and Randy Smythe, another legendary cat sailor, were duking it out for the finish, and you ended up basically match racing him almost 35 miles offshore. I sailed a little bit offshore with catamarans, but I get 5 miles offshore, and that seems like a long way. 35 had to feel like you were a long way from dry land.
Yeah, it was obviously unnerving. We go offshore a fair bit on some of the legs because the current is going south to north. So you want to get out into the Gulf Stream. And that particular leg, we went, I think it was around Cape Fear, and the starboard jibe took us offshore. We all wanted to go inshore just because of the safety aspect, but we were trying to cover the fleet because we're in a pretty good position going into that leg. So we went with Randy. Randy kept going on that starboard jibe. We were hoping if we jibed first, he'd follow, which he didn't. When we went back to see how he'd gone, he'd gained by staying out. So that took us to the point where our port jibe in from offshore was almost 2 hours before we could see land. And that's traveling at between 15 and low 20s downhill, and the sea was pretty big. So, yep, it's definitely out there. This race, there's no doubt about it.
Now, was there any? Did you have any capsizes at all during the event, or?
We had a single capsize, and that was on the defining second leg, which I think there were only 4 finishes, but on that leg, we never knew we were in the front. It was to set the scene, it was 25 to high 20s to 30 knots on the nose. We had a south to north opposing current, so the seas were standing up. It was very rough leg, and we had about 80 odd miles to sail. And for us, so you're basically going upwind at between 11 and 13 knots, a lot of boat speed into vertical seas. So it was hard to hang on to the boats. And about 1 o'clock in the morning, we could see the strobes of the checkpoint. We're probably 5 or 6 miles out. We went up, double trapezing upwind, went up a very steep breaker, and I pushed it up into the wind to get through the coma at the top. And unfortunately dragged the boat on top of us. So it was pretty extreme. And that was our capsize. And that was, we were very fortunate in getting the boat up. What was happening during this race were the boats, F-18s typically in a big breeze will want to sail away once you bring them up. They're hard to climb onto at the best of times. And when we got the boat up, it did sail away. Luckily, my crewmate, Chris Way, had got onto the boat. I didn't know whether he had or not. I'd been dragged underwater back to basically onto the rudder, hanging onto that, and I felt him pulling me up. He got onto the boat and pulled me up by my life jacket. So we just got aboard, and it was on the edge, and we got in, won the leg. And I know a lot of boats had similar situations, and they weren't able to hang on to the boat, and there were separations. So, yeah, it was that was a rough leg, and that was our one capsize.
Yeah. I can relate how hard it is to get back on an F-18. My friend and I were racing in a Hobie Tiger one time with a spinnaker going downwind. We flipped it in quite a big wind. When we got it up, we could just hold on to the Dolphin striker, and it still was sailing at probably 10 or 12 knots, and it was like we just can't hang on to this. So we had to flip it again to purposely flip it so we could sort the chute and the sails. Yeah, I couldn't imagine that happening in the dark, and that must have been again a little unsettling for that to happen. So, for a person that wanted to get into doing the work, what sort of physical, mental preparation do you do for an event like this? Like, obviously, it's pretty physically taxing. Do you switch helms or?
Well, we don't. It's interesting that helming is the easy part of the job, actually. Crewing is the hard bit. They're working the sheets. It's it's managing your injuries. It's a lot of injuries on the so backs, your hands, the wear on your hands, managing injury. A lot of people say, well, for practice, do you go out at night and go sail offshore and do a leg down the coast? And I typically say, no, that's crazy. That's dangerous. You don't do that. So it's one of those events that you're better off just physically training, make sure you are fit and you've got that, the long-term endurance, stamina, etc. It's the preparation of the boat. The boat has to be obviously reliable and dry. If you have a leak on a boat that's going in the Worrell, just a small leak, when you're around the buoys, if you come in with a cup full of water on a Worrell leg, you'll come in with half hull full of the water. So you've got to get rid of all the leaks. So it's boat preparation. It's, yes, getting fit, getting mentally prepared, and that's it. And obviously on the navigation side, do your homework on the navigation side. Talk to people who have done the race, and then make your plans accordingly.
Now, you've done an extensive amount of cruising, been on the ocean lots. How much has that helped you for your experience when you do the Worrell?
I think it definitely, it all helps. It's more comfort in the water. So I remember the first leg of this year's race, which was pretty close to the toughest Worrell I've done, because it was mostly upwind and hard. I remember after about an hour, maybe 2 hours going upwind, totally exhausted, feeling already, everything was hurting, and we were an hour into this event. And I think the skill, the thing that came to mind was the memory that if I'm hurting, everybody else is. And I knew that after 2 or 3 hours, funny thing is your body starts to get used to it and you just dial in. I knew that would happen. So rather than be demoralised, I was basically upbeat, just keeping the boat going. If it's your first event, it's very easy to get despondent and, pace goes down. So that's kind of it.
So like you said, so you're steering the whole time, and what's an average leg? 8, 9 hours, 10 hours?
Yeah, we're doing legs that are 4 or 5 hours, and other legs which are 16, 17, 18 hours, something like that. So it sounds like a lot, but it's amazing how time goes pretty quickly when when these boats are demanding. So you're very focused. So the worst thing you can do is look at your watch. If you don't look at your watch, it goes quickly.
But are you feel like you're pacing yourself, or you trying to push it the whole time, or you like being conservative to keep the breakages down, so you're always weighing that odds? Or
it's amazing, this race. It's full. You're 95%. So at the start of the race, you're 100%. It's like a round the boys race, and you can't give any quarter. You are racing some top sailors. They're going for 100%. You've got to go 100%. But as the race progresses and the things have happened, there's been breakages. In our case, we got a pretty good gap. So you start to manage the process, become conservative. You don't push the boat downhill on those waves that you not ordinarily may in a round the boys race. And going in and out through the surf, you back off. You might let the other boats go first. So you start to manage the race as it progresses, depending on where you're sitting.
And how much of a support crew is typical for a race like this?
Yeah, we had 4 most of the time, 4 on our ground crew, and it's almost, it's almost a full-time job just managing the sailors. We come in exhausted, and if we have somebody on the beach taking us to our room, feeding us, etc., you're in pretty bad shape on a tough leg. Organising the boat, you need a couple of people to organise the boat, and then another person on the logistics. So I think on the ground crew, 3-man ground crew to 4. The ground crew are driving checkpoint to checkpoint with usually with a truck or a camper van and a trailer. If something goes wrong, they've got to buy a phone or radio. You're radioing your team to meet you at a rendezvous to repair the boat. So the ground crew, it's actually it's a fun event to be the ground crew. There's plenty to do.
Actually, I forgot when we were back talking about the original Worrells. I wanted to share this photo here with you, and I don't know if it's coming out or not for you.
I can't see it yet.
Let me try. You recognize that guy?
Oh yeah, I wonder who that is. That looks like my son, actually.
yeah, it looked quite a bit alike. I think that was back from 1983. I think.
Yeah, it would be 83. That's exactly right. We're sponsored by Foster's and Qantas.
I think you were with Brett Dryland at the time, weren't you?
With Brett, and we're still very close. We're still very good mates, and we catch up quite regularly. So, yeah, great years, really good years.
Yeah, Brett. Actually, I had the privilege of racing against him in Canada. Here, he came up for the '87 Hobie 18 Worlds and pretty much dominated that event.
Yeah, fantastic sailor, and he still is. Yeah,
in cold weather as it was. So now the other thing. So you won the Worrell, 5th time. You said you won the Worrell. You go over to Sweden and you do this archipelago raid. What enticed you to do that?
In winning firstly, the archipelago raid is a bucket list event for me and many sailors. It's you hear a lot about it. It's not easy to do these events if you don't have a bit of inside knowledge in how it all works. And part of the winning the Worrell this last year was an invitation. So that's how it happened. I got the invitation, and everyone said, you've got to do it. And I'm so pleased I did. So that's what it was. I turned up with no expectations. I had a Swedish local who'd done the raid before, and he put up his boat, and it was just a tremendous time.
So how much different is it doing a raid like that around islands than a Worrell? Like, is there some similarities, or is it not close at all?
It's definitely not a tough event. It's a boat speed event with a real strong navigational twist. So it's flat water. I think the biggest wave you got was sort of a foot or a couple of feet. So it's an incredible, beautiful location. You've got a place where there's 30,000 islands, and there's 100 checkpoints. 100 waypoints. Every day you wake up, you don't know where you're going to go. They announce the course in the morning. You're camping out on the islands in little cabins, and every morning around breakfast they announce the course. Waypoint 7, waypoint 52, and you've got this course which no one else has done before. And your options on the course, there's so many islands. You can, when I say islands, a lot of them are just rocks. And your course could be, there's many different options, so which makes the race so incredible. About 35 boats, a much bigger fleet. What is special is the incredible organisation and the most beautiful scenery in the world. So that's what sets it apart.
Yeah, and rumor has it that that you may be showing up in Canada to do a raid that's put on the Prince Edward County raid that's been going on for 18 years in Canada. We have a strong rumor that we may see you on the start line next year.
Well, it's quite funny, I had a very busy year last year, and I was just so looking forward to a year coming up where we can just relax. And then I heard about this race. I think I've received the invitation, and I think it's about 5 seconds later I was in. It sounds tremendous, cannot wait, and it's just an excuse to come and meet some like-minded people, have a good time, and a bit of an adventure. So we're in, boots and all, can't wait.
Great. So I want to I know you're short on time, and I've asked a lot of questions here and appreciate your time. I just want to get your viewpoint. We had Cam Owen on here a couple weeks ago, a recent Hobie 16 world champ, him and Susie again. And he had an interesting viewpoint about youth sailing where he feels like it's gone the wrong direction. Like his point was that he felt, and he used your son as an example, that the youths don't get enough chance to race against adults that are, obviously a little more skilled, more experienced, and he thought they're missing out on that by, especially in the cat scene where they're going to these high performance NACRA 15s, and there's so few of them, and there's not that much competition. I just wonder, I don't know if you heard him on the show or if you share the same viewpoint, that you think that the youth sailors today are missing out by not intermingling with adult racing as much.
I think it's very true, and it's quite sad to see. But it's and it's just the pressures of modern society and the opportunities for young people that with obviously the social side of things is on the phone now versus direct contact. But we had a local regatta here last weekend, and the portion of young people was amazing. I think there is a little bit of a turn back. The fleet for that regatta was the biggest in 5-6 years. It's quite a return, and we have another regatta, our national titles for Hobies, which is on just after Christmas. Hobie 14s, there's 50 odd entries already. So a lot of those are young people. So I think it'll change. The wind is changing, and I'm just hoping that the junior classes will be re-inspired, and it'll be on again. So not to give up.
And I think you'd probably agree that you don't need the highest tech, fanciest boat to be a good sailor. Like, the Hobie 16, you think of your son, Billy Beeson, Enrique Figueroa, all these names that grew up, yourself sailing 16s, and probably one of the best classes to, with competition wise.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting. So, like I've got the opportunity to sail the latest two-handed monohulls or the high performance multihulls. But yesterday I ordered a brand new Hobie 14. So there you go. And that's kind of it. I know where the competition is, where the fun is, and this sport is about enjoying what you're doing, including the long distance races. They're tough events, but boy, they're enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, you would know because you've done them, and we appreciate you coming on and sharing that experience, and I'm looking forward to meeting up with you this apparently I hear the other rumor is that you're retiring from the Worrell.
I'm seriously, yes, I will be there. I will definitely be there, but it probably will be managing a strong team. So I'm in the process of getting that all set up, and I'll be seeing all my friends in Fort Lauderdale in 2024. Cannot wait.
Maybe time to pass the torch to that younger Waterhouse guy, eh?
Yeah. I've talked to him about it. I'd love to get him there. I really would. Yeah. So we'll just see how that pans out.
And on that line, I believe you guys didn't you do a Hobart to Sydney adventure with him on board also?
I did a Sydney to Hobart on a Hobie Tiger. We kept it fairly low profile. That's probably why a lot of people don't know about it. But we did it. We successfully, unassisted, did a Sydney to Hobart, and Jason was, and a good friend of mine, Curly Corlett, were part of that. So it was an amazing adventure. Lots of stories which I could share to you directly at some point. But yep, we did it.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, Rod, and good luck with your adventure, and get packed for Canada.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you, Mike. Thanks for the opportunity. Enjoyed it.